boys and girls, and welcome to my new playthrough of Oxygen Not Included. And if you've wandered this far down the YouTube rabbit hole, you must love it as well. Now, this will be the first time that I'm making YouTube videos, which means I've probably got a lot to learn, but on the plus side, probably won't not remember to ask you guys to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell until 10 videos in. I'm not going to go for any specific achievements, but I do know a little bit about this game, and I'd love to share some of my learnings with you guys. So choosing duplicates, I am going to get myself a digger. Normally I would have liked to get someone that does supplying, but this guy's already perfect, so I'm not going to reroll him, and I'm going to get a researcher. I'm going to roll them until they're +7, just because it's nice in the beginning, but I don't want narcoleptic as a skill, because it's very frustrating if they fall asleep while they're running around. It just slows down so many other things. Anemic's also not great. Little arm's not great. Okay, give me a minute. So these will be the 3 dupes that we will embark with. We've got our researcher, our digger, and our supplier. Now what I like to start with is something that satisfies my OCD. The base has to be built from the center and out to a specific size. And the reason why we use 13 tiles is if the largest rooms that you can have are 24 tiles in width if you've got a height of 4, which means that this, if you include the doors, works out to exactly 24. So that would then be where our doors go, and obviously then we need to put in our floors, which will run on this level here. Now we're leaving one gap and a ladder so everyone can get onto the main ladder, and then another gap on this side, which means our floor will start here. The main reason for that is so there's plenty of space to run your pipes and your power lines without it interfering. So the first thing that I like to build is bedrooms, which I think is quite important. Okay, we don't have any metal yet, so we don't have anything to make a door out of just yet, but we will soon. I'm going to just fast forward a little bit. I've got a mod installed that makes the speed go a little bit faster, which is just a little convenient. Okay, I'm going to skip forward a little bit until the bedrooms are up. Okay, next important thing are the bathrooms. So I'm going to put 3 outhouses in to start off with. And the reason why I'm going to use 3 is I've got 3 dupes. So they can all use the bathroom at the same time when they wake up. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. I want you guys to focus on this, please. So that you don't sleep on the ground, which you will complain about. Okay, perfect. And then the most important thing after that is the bathroom, so you don't pee on the floor, especially close to the water. And this, of course, will also be a room. You can use 2 doors instead of another tile. It will still count as a room, but it helps with airflow. Okay, and just like that, our dupes won't pee on the floor, and they're ready for bed when the time comes. Okay, while that's being finalized, we can put in our research station. Our research station needs power, and at this stage the only generation that you have available to you is manual generation. You could run the wire straight through, but that's not neat. Okay, now our dupes will go to bed. Good night. tomorrow, first thing, they'll probably run to the bathroom. Okay, now when it comes to the basins, as soon as it has water from this pitcher pump, is you set it to the left so that they only wash their hands when they leave the bathroom and not before and after. And just like that, we have the start of a base. Wherever possible, I try not to dig out the oxalite so that it can naturally just give off oxygen before I have a way to create more oxygen, which I'm gonna need in the near future, but I'll just open this up a little bit and the oxygen will naturally migrate in this direction. Okay. Cool. Now we'll get our priorities right. So Camille is the person who will do all of our research. So set everyone to disallowed except for Camille. She will do it as a high priority. Then Stinky is our digger. So we're going to set him to high priority on digging and on building. And the reason for that is this ladder will be built out of igneous rock, for example. So he'll dig and use the igneous rock that he just dug up to build instead of digging, then running and going to do something else and then coming back or expecting someone else to build. Simple as that. And Ruby will focus on supply, storing, and tidying. So if Stinky, I like saying Stinky, is busy digging, I can't remember what the other dupe's name was, will come and he'll come deliver the resources. So it just speeds up everything. Okay, but we should now get into our research. I've got a mod installed that allows me to queue up research. The only difference is I don't have to come in every time to select something new. So we're going to do advanced skill, supercomputer, which we'll need for more fancy things in the near future. And then I am going to research ranching because I like getting hatches quite early on. So that's a conservative start. Okay, and a bedroom can go up to 16 tiles in length at 4 height. And these measurements I'm getting from here, so a room overlay. If they sleep in a barracks, they get a morale bonus of +1. If they use a latrine, they get a morale bonus of +1. And they need morale in order to use their skills and not get stressed out. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So that dictates the size of a room. Then there it says a maximum. If we look at a barracks, maximum 64 tiles. And 64 divided by 4 is 16. This is also something you should look out for. Shine bugs emit light. Very cute, but it keeps your dupes awake when they're trying to sleep. So I'll probably get rid of that little guy. Now for food, there's a couple of options. You can get things from nature in the form of things that are naturally growing, or from animals, or pips, or hatches. There's a lot of different things that you could use for meat. But pips, the nice thing about them is they'll run around and they'll plant natural plants, like this mealwood that's ready for harvest. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set it to always be harvested. And then as soon as it's ready, like this one is, one of the dupes will come around and dig it up. Alright, dig it up, harvest it, and there you go. There's a little bit of meal ice, but it'll start growing again, so we can get more out of it. Okay, yes, and there we go. Now my dupes, unless this one decides to come closer, no. Sorry little guy, you are also going to take a sleep with the fishes. Okay. Now we can build a water cooler, and the water cooler I'm going to use in my great hall, and my great hall is where my dupes will eat their dinner. that can be quite a big building, like so. I'm not going to dig out the oxalite. It will keep off-gassing and will soon actually disappear on its own. I'm going to build a supercomputer, even though we're not going to use it just yet, but we'll use it soon enough. Now the next thing you want to look out for, or be aware of, are these little cracks. Inside these little cracks you'll find food or hatches or seeds, generally things that can benefit you. And with that lesson, we've got our first blueprint. So I think we're going to go with Rowan, because uncultured means they get a plus 20 to morale decor. They don't care what it looks like, even though none of my dupes get to care about it at this stage. And they have got quick learner, which means they do research skill faster, but more importantly, they level their skills faster. Mouth breather is a bit of a problem, but we'll make sure that we're producing enough oxygen that doesn't stop us too much. So welcome to the base. Now, we've only got 3 bathrooms, okay, which means when they go to the bathroom, there's going to be one that can't use the toilet when he needs it. So that's why we use this schedule. So we're just going to add another schedule. And what we're going to do is we are going to move Camille. Camille gets plus 3 to her attributes at night, which she's currently using to sleep. So we're going to move all of that to work. Then move her downtime to there. She needs 2 downtimes. Bedtime to there, and her bath time to there. Now, when Camille wants to go to the bathroom, she's the only one that will be in that queue. So they all technically have their own bathrooms. And we've got, if you look at that little helmet there, we've got our first skill to choose from. So that'll be Rowan, because Rowan, all dupes start with 1 except for the 3 that you start with, but they will soon have their first skill. And then Rowan's priorities we can set in the same way that we set Ruby's. Now as soon as that floor is built, this room will become it will not be a mess hall because it's too big, but we'll soon put in some furniture which will make it a great hall. And a great hall gives a morale bonus of, drum roll please, plus 6, which is great. A nice and early way to get, I need to, sorry for interrupting myself. I need to get this oxygen to fall into my base. There's still lots of lovely oxygen to use. I just need to coerce it to join the fold. Okay, now that we have a mess hall that can seat 22 dupes, we should probably think about a food source. Now, a option is to plant crops or have your pups plant them for you, which we'll talk about later. But if you look at the temperature, which is 30 degrees, mealwood will probably stop growing because their body temperature, as soon as it goes over 30 degrees, which is what the atmosphere is, they will stifle like that. So mealwood's not really an option at this stage. What we can look at using is microbe musher, which we'll put in for temporary. It's not the best way to create food. Dupes don't really like the meals that come out of it, or the first meals that come out of it, but we might need it until we have a more sustainable source of food. So now we've got new skills, and Camille, because she's got plus 7 in science already, she learns faster, which is why she got her level first. So she will go into advanced researching and will now start using the supercomputer. Okay, this oxygen, like I said, is now slowly pouring down, but it's not quite enough just yet. Another nifty trick is you can leave all doors open and you'll still get the room bonus. It just means that the dupes Don't have to wait for a door to open and close. Okay, next skill available, Stinky. Going into hard digging. To move further away from this initial starting dome, you need stronger skills. Like if I go that way, you see, I need super hard digging, for example, which is why digging is such an important skill even from the start. Okay, what are we researching? Ranches, yeah, that's cool. I'd like to go into ranching quite soon because it is more forgiving temperature-wise. A hatch, which is around here somewhere. Where is that hatch? I know there's a hatch here somewhere. I'll find it. A hatch can go to higher temperatures, which means I don't have to worry about it as much. Okay, cool. Now the next research I want to get is just a little bit of decoration so I can make that room into a great hall, and to do that I need plus 20 morale. I'll also get fireman poles to help my dupes move around, and then we can start going into more sustainable sources of power generation. Okay, you never want your dupes to be idle. If they're idle, they are not contributing towards the base. So the next thing on my build list is a little kitchen, which will become a little bit more elaborate as time goes by, but a nice way to make sure that your food doesn't go off is to put it in a sterile environment. And a simple way to make a sterile environment is to create a pit that carbon dioxide will fall into. If we look at the gases, so went materials, gases, see it's filled with carbon dioxide. That carbon will not go out of that spot. It might shift around and this might shift, but the food lying in the bottom layer will always be carbon, which means it's safe to put your food in there. It's a sterile environment, so it won't go off. So we are just going to move the ration box to there, and that will take care of our food needs for the time being. Then we've got a new blueprint. You don't want to get too many dupes too early, especially if you don't have the infrastructure to support them, which I don't currently have, but I am confident enough that I will get momentum soon enough. Here's hoping. Now obviously schedule wise, we now need to move one of them. And even though Devon isn't a night owl, he'll also join that group. And Devon, you will first go into building for me. So your priorities will be similar to Stinky. Where's Devon? Building and digging. Okay, see now we're digging towards algae. Algae we can use to create oxygen, which we quite desperately need at this stage. So that means we're going to have to extend the power wire. This map does not have the most amount of algae, but it's just temporary. That's fine. So we've got quite a lot of chlorine in our starting biome, which is not ideal. But there are always things in the world. See, this is unrefrigerated, sterile. Okay, it's just because there's so much carbon in my base currently, it's also a sterile environment. But soon there'll be oxygen instead. See, now we've got a food shortage. Something that does help quite a bit in the beginning are these excellent fruit. They are excellent sources of nutrition. No, they're not. But you can harvest them for quite a fair amount of food, and the great thing is but the downside is you can only harvest them once. So that's why I like to keep quite a few of them growing until I need them. And decoration wise, this is now a great haul, which means it's giving me plus 6 morale bonus. Okay, now we've got some oxygen going. Lovely. I want to move this water sooner rather than later. Just going to create a natural or a large water tank inside my base. And to do that, you want to make sure that you are not building it out of a softer material like sandstone, for example, because it will break. Ideally, you'd build it out of metal, like an airflow tile, but for now, this will work just fine. So symmetrical again, very important to me. And you're obviously going to put ladders inside, so your dupes can run up and down. Okay, game science isn't foolproof, but there are a couple of things that you can use as a rule of thumb. Like your gases, carbon dioxide is heavier, so it falls to the bottom. Oxygen and helium are lighter, so they float to the top. So the more you dig down, the less of a problem carbon dioxide is going to be inside your main base. And we can use that to our advantage in a moment or two. We've got a new blueprint to choose from. Oh, we've got a little hatchling. Might want to use that, but I actually want to get a rancher, and it's not the best rancher, but it will do for now. So Turner, welcome to the base. You're going to need a bed because you're going to be sleeping on the floor. I'm just going to build the rest, get it over and done with. And I'm going to create another schedule for my early birds. So you're going to work at that stage, and you're going to go to the bathroom at that stage, and then Turner. There you go. Okay, now that that's done, we can start digging up so that this water can just naturally flow into our new built tank. Okay, we can destroy that, and now the carbon will have a little bit more space to drop down. We don't have a lot of water to start off with, which can create a fair amount of challenges, but you know, I'm confident that we'll make it. Okay, we can queue a little bit more research. We don't have much coal at the moment, I don't think. Let's look here under consumable ore, very little. And there are at least some coal deposits that we can dig up to power our base. But to make sure we use that as effectively as possible, what we want to research is smart batteries, and how those work I'll explain in a minute. And outside of that, we are going to need automation, and I'll explain how those work in a minute. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to get a hatchery going, and I will use this floor. So hatcheries can be a bit larger. They can also be 24 tiles, so that would be to there, plus a door. So what we need is a grooming station, a critter drop-off, and a critter feeder. So we can feed whatever critters we put in the base. And then what I like to do is to add a storage bin into the space. And the reason for the storage bin is so that when this critter feeder is empty, which it inevitably will get, instead of the dupes having to run from wherever to fill it up, they can just top it up from this side. Okay, now another pro tip is to add another door on this side. And the reason why we add this door is critters decide whether they're cramped or not based on the full size of the room. But when your ranchers go to groom the critters, they look at the full size, or they call the critters, and if the critter's all the way over there, it's going to take it forever to get back to the grooming station. So by doing this, your critters aren't cramped, but it's that much easier for them to get to be groomed. Easy as pie. Okay, now on this side we are also going to have the same type of ladder system going. I'm actually just going to copy this one, like so. Ta-da! Okay. That one I'm going to leave for now because I don't want the chlorine coming into my base. Ooh, okay. That shine bug is keeping them awake like crippling debt. Okay. Sweet dreams. Okay. Can start with more research. I'm going to need these for oxygen producing soon, and I'm also going to need a pump, but I'll also get the bathrooms going and water distillation. I'll explain all of that soon. Now what I like to do that's quite different from other players is start with my power spine, as they call it, so my main power grid from the start. And the advantage of doing it that way is I don't have a situation where I build something new and I need to temporarily run power to it. So this section here, that can go, is where the main power wire runs. The advantage of a power watt or heavy watt wire is they can take 20 kilowatts, whereas a normal wire takes just 1,000 watts. So it's much more, especially in the beginning, that's more than enough power for whatever you want to do. And the reason why I run it off to the side here is so that my dupes don't really interact with it a lot. That the reason why you don't use it throughout your base is, first off, you can't build it through tiles, which would be neat like that, and it's got a massive morale, or it decreases the decor quite a lot, which has a negative effect on your dupe's morale. Now that the power spine is up and running, I can start extending it. I can actually start tapping into it. And at the moment I only need power in this one little spot. Connect that. Run the wire over and then disconnect that. And then enable these buildings. And then as soon as the smart battery is set up. Okay, so what we do is we set a high, okay, first the low threshold. If the battery goes below a certain point, it switches off, or it tells the power generators to switch off. So as soon as it reaches the high threshold, it'll tell it to switch off, and as soon as it reaches the low threshold, apologies, it switches back on. So now it's reached the 90%, so it's told the generator to switch off, so I'm not wasting any coal powering something when I don't need it. The low threshold is when does it actually switch back on. The reason why we set it to 90 as opposed to charging it up to 100% is these batteries or all of the batteries created have a little animation when they create power. So one last pump of the coal generator in this instance. And if it's already on 100%, when it tells it to switch off, you waste a little bit of power. So it just squeezes out that last bit of benefit from the generator and using a smart battery. Okay, now that we have power going, we can start looking at building proper bathrooms for our duplicates. And bathrooms in the same way that as a latrine has to be this size. So what do we need to put in it? We need to put in sinks, and you put in number of sinks based on the number of toilets to make sure that they all wash their hands. And you can put in showers. I need to decide whether I want to. It gives them a bonus, but it also takes more time away. Why not? 2 showers. Okay, to have that working, we need to put in a pump. So the pump will run this way, over, and up. And when doing your plumbing, you have got the option of having it run straight through like in one connection. No problem with that, but this just looks neater, and I get a kick out of making my base as neat as possible. All connected. So, much like any bathroom, it uses clean water and then pumps out polluted water. Now, instead of using your clean drinking water or water you use for food, we're going to use a water sieve to purify it. So what that looks like is the polluted water goes in there and the clean water comes out here. As simple as that. But every time they use a shower or a bathroom, they end up with a little bit of surplus. So we need to do something with that surplus. Now, some of the options are just dump it somewhere, but I've got an idea to use it for my oxygen. And a nifty way to make sure that you never lose the water that you want for your bathrooms is by using a bridge and then extending it this way. So the rule is the water will always flow through a bridge, or will always try to flow through a bridge. Only if it's backed up completely will it go anywhere else, which is what this pipe will be for. And this pipe will run all the way up to where we are going to start our oxygen production. Start our oxygen production here in a short bit. Another great way to use a bridge is when you connect it onto a main stream, and what that'll do is water will only flow into from the bridge into the main stream, which is this one, if there's space. So if the system is primed, meaning we've pumped clean water in and into all of these pipes, it won't pump anymore, and then once it starts producing polluted water, it won't use more clean water because it's already got a stream coming from the water sieve, so the purified water. Okay, so that'll be set up soon enough, but the water sieve will need power, and we are going to use the copy tool like so to set up that one for us. Boop. So we are going to build a self-sustaining oxygen generation room. And basically what that means is it's going to use less power to operate than what it actually produces. And the reason we are choosing this blueprint is the hydrogen will now float to the top while the oxygen floats to the bottom. So on the bottom floor, we are going to put in ventilation. The solid option, of course, with this build is to just have the oxygen naturally flow into the base. but you end up needing pumps to circulate it around more. Otherwise, it sort of lingers in a certain area like this, which is not what we want. So we're going to put in enough pumps. And if you look at, this is called the Rodriguez electrolyzer. If you look at builds online, you'll see that they often brick the whole thing up, but eventually something breaks. And if you've bricked the whole thing up, there's no way for you to get into the room to fix it, unless you open it back up. So this is just a simple way to avoid that frustration. Just put in doors and you can tell the dupes not to go into the room. And in the same manner, you could use airflow tiles here rather than mesh tiles, but if the wrong types of liquid go into the electrolyzer, they break. And if there's water in the room, it overpressure, or water on top of them, they overpressurize and stop working. By using mesh tiles, it just falls to the floor. It's just simple ways to make sure the build is as forgiving as possible. I think it's also time to put in a fireman's pole. And what that does, it just helps dupes move around that little bit faster. And I'm going to power those from my spine, so there will be no need for manual generators or anything of the sort to get this up and running. And we are going to use the hydrogen that we are creating to produce some power for us. So it's also going to need a smart battery, which we'll place here, and a heavy watt will be there. So I'm planning all of this out in advance. Power from here to all of these. Now the reason why I'm running 2 as opposed to 1, outside of the fact that it looks neat because it runs on 2 different floors, is the fact that it's got a power capacity of 1000 watts, and by running it, if I try to run all of it on 1, it would overload the system. The reason why I'm connecting these pipes to each other is they can pump, the pipes can carry more than this can pump. So by connecting them, we make sure that we are pumping enough oxygen out. So I'm going to have the one run this way and down. We can run the pipe quite a fair bit down, even if we don't use all of it right now. Put a gas vent on here, and for the sake of symmetry, have the other one run up here, over and up. Now this system will reach equilibrium, or will reach equilibrium where you do not need a filter to make sure that you are only pumping hydrogen into it. But in the beginning, it will be uneven, which is why we'll add a gas filter that'll filter out the hydrogen into the hydrogen generators. And now the most important thing to make sure that the system runs the way we want it to is automation wires. An automation wire for the oxygen pumps and automation wire for the hydrogen pumps. And what this Atmos sensor will say is, if there is enough pressure, then start the pump. Okay, and just like that, our plumbing is almost complete. The bathrooms are up and running. And now, because we have got a serious shortage of water, we are not going to have the water flow from our main source into the oxygen just yet. We are going to only allow the water from the plumbing to go to the oxygen creation. Now we can get rid of these because we don't need them anymore. And what I've done with these doors is I've set them that they can only come in from this side, which means if they were to use a water sieve or whatever, they'd still wash their hands. Now let's see, is this up and running? So it creates polluted water and it goes that way. So it's going to keep going until it's filled up, which will be in a cycle or two, and then we'll start using polluted water to create oxygen. Thank you very much for tuning in. I will be doing these as much as possible, but life happens. Um, if you have any suggestions or any comments, like I said, this is the first time I'm doing YouTube videos, so I'd love to hear positive or negative. I'm Peacock, and you gotta let me fly.